Now, the rest of the story.
Well, the sun decided to come out for a little bit, at least enough that I felt comfortable coming out and bailing a bunch. The stuff isn't as bad as it was earlier as far as holding moisture. I mean, the sun coming out definitely helped, but a lot of it is just choosing to roll the dice on this stuff. I am putting down the preservative on this stuff. Ryan is running, or was running, the 569 across everything that he raked with the New Holland rake. I mean, everything that Ryan is bailing at least can be run through the wrapper. This stuff, this is meant for my cattle this winter, and the bales look nice. I don't have the moisture sensor because that's, or moisture tester, because that's in the 82. But this field in particular is the second cut for the year. It's probably the, how do you want to say it, the first cut alfalfa off of that new seeding. Because actually the stuff came in really nice, and I'm actually sitting at 25 bales for the day. Ryan he said he had 15 off of that first field he did. If you add the 21 bales that I had from the other day, because technically this is all cut within 24 hours of each other, we're going to be pushing 100 bales. Yeah, we should at least break 100, which isn't bad for what we all have or had to do. I mean, I still have everything in my place. That's going to end up waiting until tomorrow. The waterways and that, also the new seating strip. That stuff's actually heavier than this stuff. And a lot of it just boils down to the time of year. I can keep waiting and waiting and waiting for this stuff to get perfectly dry, and it just isn't going to happen. Wrapping it up like this, leaving it. I'm planning on hauling it in at least, get it off the field. I mean, because I don't want to hurt any of this new seating that we got in the ground, but at least get it back towards the buildings, space it out, let it air out for a week or two, and I'll stack it inside. I mean, the bales are actually turning out really nice. It's just, you're getting the area, like you're getting spots of that it's just damp. Not like where it's like you pick it up and it's dripping water. You know, I know better than to bail that stuff most of the time. But a lot of it's playing into the whole management choices of, I know that I'm feeding this stuff out to my cows. If I was going to try to send this stuff down the road, at this point I probably would be making it anyway. I'd probably just be cranking the rate controller about twice of what I'm putting on right now. I'm not putting on a full rate. I'm putting on at least I'm trying, rate of preservative. I mean, a little bit of something is better than 100% of nothing. And I'm not saying this stuff couldn't potentially heat, sweat. I'm expecting it to. But it's the 7th of September. We have a little over 120 acres of hay to make yet. Almost all of that is down at the valley. And we have a bunch of stuff that we want to work on yet. Between working on the corn head. The corn planter doesn't look like it's going to happen at this point. Just because everything's getting smashed into a smaller time frame of everything we're wanting to work on. But it's... I keep a close eye on this stuff because we're dry. I mean, we really haven't gotten much for rain. And just making sure that that dirt and dust that's getting kicked up is dirt and dust and isn't indications of a fire. And at least this is the field where the bale started taking off on me. At least that was over on that side of the field. As far as the whole hay situation for us, though, we're sitting really well. And not saying that we could actually come up short on feed if we have a nasty winter, because like last year it was almost the 1st of January before we really had winter weather. I mean, because we didn't get snow until after Christmas, and then I do believe the second half of January, February. I mean, when Brittany was leaving in the morning, because she's got to leave at 6:30, getting Relina all bundled up and able to at least go out the door with her, it was 17 below pretty regularly there for a couple weeks. And the colder you get, I mean, if you get weather like that starts in late November, first part of December, which is typical for us, to be honest. I mean, like last year, I think that's what really hurt the hay prices, is people didn't have to actually start feeding their cattle until January. I mean, yeah, they could have been supplementing them like in December, but until you get a bunch of snow and cold, when the cattle actually have to start eating a fair amount of feed to keep their conditioned up, you know, so they're not losing weight, because they're starting to burn more calories trying to stay warm. And us going into this winter, I'm not really sure how many bales we have. I mean, with everything that's wrapped up behind the shed at my place, everything that is wrapped out at Ryan's place, because we did end up wrapping almost all of first crop. So the downside to that is we ended up wrapping a bunch of dad's hay out at my brother's place that I actually will need down here. So ultimately that's just going to mean that it's wrapped, but I can still get away with just loading up that bale wagon and bringing down a load or two in the winter, because with the stuff that's up here, like that new seeding, that oilage cover crop that we wrapped, I'll end up giving probably 2 bales of fodder, a bale of that oilage stuff that's been wrapped wet, so it did, well, until we break it open and actually know what it looks like inside that silage wrap, it should technically be silage to a certain degree. I mean, the stuff was definitely wet wrapped, but giving them a bale of that and then a bale of the dry hay, I'll be sitting comfortable as far as at least getting my parents' cattle fed down here. For me, I got, what did I have? 30 bales of seeding, you know, the oats cover crop. 30 bales of that that's wrapped. I got 30 bales of dry hay that's up there right now. I'm currently at 20 something bales so far. And then like I've said in the hay down at the valley video, checking that stuff, I do have 60 bales yeah, 60 to 80 bales down there that I'll probably end up pulling a few off and bringing them home. But we use corn fodder. It's a type of feed. We make it for bedding, so they have something to lay on, but you always lose some ears across the field. Granted, we're not going to have as many ears in the fodder as we've had in the past, because the last 2 years with the wind damage at the home farm, we prioritized making our fodder off of that because we were trying to pick up all the ears that we could. So the cows were getting pretty good supplement from the corn fodder, just because they were going through shredding the bales, as they will regardless, and they go through and they find all the corn ears that they can. It isn't gonna roll, so I got lucky there. As far as our cattle go, I'm not worried about it. I was asking Ryan what we thought we're gonna need for. Okay, it did roll a little bit. That camera's really nice. At least I can keep an eye on them. As far as fodder this year, I usually figured 250 bales. And with that wrapper, the goal is we are gonna wrap a bunch of fodder this year. Granted, if we have any shed space, we can stick it inside, we're going to. But Dad and Ryan both, and me included, would like to wrap a bunch. Myself, we're trying to get enough fodder around for Dad and Ryan to make it through the winter, but that was before we could wrap them. If we can wrap them, I'd actually probably focus more on getting the stuff that's stacked inside used up, and then go through and start using any of the bales, you know, the corn fodder that's wrapped, because at least that way, as long as we're able to find a place where it's out of the way, we can actually let the stuff sit throughout the summer or throughout the fall. Because for me, in my current cattle situation, the last 2 years I was feeding up the last of our fodder clear up into July, and once again the cows go through and they tear it up, they eat up all the corn leaves and any of the corn ears they can find, and they lay on it even in the summer. I mean, it's bed pack. And because of the situation I have up there, where primarily all my cattle are currently up at the home farm, I'm actually leaning more towards making enough corn fodder and at least being able to store it in a way that it doesn't deteriorate, that I can at least actually, when I got to put a hay bale in for them next year, I may actually intend on putting a hay and a fodder bale in for them next year, just so they have something else they can kind of chew on throughout the summer. Because yes, I'm short on space up there. Yes, I can overstock that too much. Honestly, I feel like it's already overstocked, but I've already accepted the fact that I gotta haul the feed to them to keep them there. I have places down at my place that, well, even this field farm, it's got the pasture on it. We could at least get the fences fixed up around the pasture piece, and we can put a few head of cattle down in there throughout the summer. Almost like heifer. I don't know if we want to do heifers, but it's irrelevant. I mean, because I don't have, the pastures has to be fixed up before I worry about what I'm going to put in it. But ideally, I can actually bring some cows down to my place. Even that house pasture, I don't usually put anything in there, but I can haul something down there throughout the summer also. But the big push I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to let the bulls in around my cattle other than when I want them in with my cows, because it's becoming more and more important to me that I keep my cattle synchronized, as in the bulls in with them for the June 1st to, it was August 18th, but I tried to do it for at least 45 days to 60 days. Preferably it would have been June 1st to September 1st, but no, June, July, no, they had plenty, yeah, we're good. So June 1st to August 1st is what I was really aiming for. So I mean, they were in there longer than I intended. Next year, as long as Rocky's still viable, I'm already planning on having another Red Angus bull in up there, so I'm going to have at least 2 Red Angus bulls in with my cattle. I'm not planning on putting the Black Angus in with my cattle unless it gets to like the last 2 weeks, and it's just like fine if the 3 of them can fight it out. But if I have my cattle synchronized where the bulls are only in with them from this time to this time year round, if any of them come back where they're open, I'll make the management decision as to whether or not I keep them or I call them. And then if I decide to keep them, put it down in your records that they were open last year. You go another year with that same program. You preg check them again after they were in with the bulls again And if those same cows come back, you know, again, 2 times in a row means 2 strikes, you're out. I mean, sometimes it's 1 strike, you're out. You don't get 3 strikes. If it's 2 years in a row where they don't get bred back, then they're called out. And that's, I haven't been doing super high, awesome, amazing management with my cattle. It's not like I'm not able to. And by all means, it's looking like I'm going to start managing them a lot more serious. I mean, and it's not that I'm not capable of doing it. I've just been choosing to have a more standoffish approach with them and just making sure that they're fed and they got their minerals. I haven't really been quiet about it. I mean, I've been really upfront with the fact that the big reason why I had the cows was if things go sideways on a cutting or so down at the valley, then the cows can at least get that feed. And that 60 or so bales that's down there, I'm actually looking at it. I have looked at it again, and I'm feeling very confident that I could load it up and sell it and I'll get my money out of it. But I've also made the decision that once I get done making the rest of my feed, like my waterways, and this is about 7 or 7.5 acres here. Once I get my final numbers up at home as far as the feed I'll have available, then I'll make the decision of how much hay off of those 60 bales I'm going to keep back and feed to the cows. And then we must not forget, we have 120 acres down at the valley of third cutting that we will be making yet. And that has the awesome, terrible potential of maybe I end up getting that rained on, or I can't get it dry, or the stuff goes out of condition on me, and I end up having to feed out all of third cut down there. And that would be absolutely terrible. But the plus side, because you have to look at the plus side, if it came down to that, we have access to a bale wrapper. And if a bunch of my hay, albeit I hope not like 200 bales worth of it down there, isn't gonna be viable, or if it gets rained on a bunch and it's just like, forget it, either I haul it home and wrap it, or I make a couple rows down the valley and then haul it home during the winter. But I gotta be honest with you, if I already know I'm gonna use it for feed and I'm gonna wrap it for feed, I'd rather haul the stuff home when it's nice out than try to haul it home in the winter and have to, you know, you avoid snowstorms in the winter like you avoid rainstorms during the summer when you're trying to work outside. And that's exactly what it would be, is trying to haul hay when it isn't snowing. And yeah, that's a lot of information to say in the last 18 minutes, but I'm in a talking mood. I can sit and talk and talk. The weather really hasn't been that bad. The corn looks great. The beans look great. I haven't really been doing much crop update videos, but it's crop update videos. I mean, you can only sit and talk about corn or beans so often, whether or not they're drought stricken or, you know, flooded out because they're getting too much rain. Believe it or not, that is a thing. Even for us, we can get too much rain, and then the roots don't have to dig down depending on when you get all this rain. And then if the rain quits, then you have a bunch of shallow rooted crops that are, you know, drowning or starving themselves for water because they didn't develop the roots early on. So it's always something. Like this stuff right here. It's been 8 days since this stuff's been cut. It's still damp when we checked it this morning, and we ran around and checked everything. And ooh, come on. And that's, we raked it up to get it up off the ground, because at that point we had to. Leaving it laid till today or tomorrow, I mean, the regrowth would have grown up that much more, and then it wasn't doing anything as far as attempting to dry out. And you gotta treat every crop of hay you know, all 3 or 4 or 5 of them, every crop of corn, every crop of beans, differently. Albeit fungicide on the corn, or, you know, any kind of foliar additive on the beans. And I don't mind making hay, it's just the problem is with corn or beans, you're focusing on making one crop work once. You only get one chance to do corn or beans right. And then any additional attempts in any one year are just salvage operations, you know, anything like replant or reseeding or anything like that. With hay, the stressful part about hay, especially when you are trying to ship a bunch of it down the road, is that you got to have everything work out for you every time. For me in particular, at least twice, preferably at least 3 times, especially down at the valley. So there's a lot of teeth grinding going on there when you start talking about not so good weather, because this would have been, I don't know, honestly, now that we've gone through it, I don't know if this would have been the week to make the valley if it was ready to go. But looking at the forecast, they're calling for, which whether or not we get it is a whole different argument. But as far as the weather, they're calling for rain Saturday, Sunday, and then clear again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then they got rain for the following how many days, clear out to the forecast. So you get 7 to 10 days out. It's easy to, you know, it can change every time you hit the refresh on the phone. I mean, I think there's a hurricane out there, isn't there? I mean, any hurricane down south, if you don't think it affects us, you're severely wrong, because then if it comes up across the states and you get the remnants of it, I mean, we've had years in harvest where we've lost a week of harvest because a hurricane came through into the south and then it broke up coming up across the country, and then you get too wet. You can't harvest corn or beans, or it's too muddy or whatever else. So it can be, it's a challenge. So no, as far as the valley goes, I didn't want to cut it yet. I mean, it's got growth there. 150 bales maybe are down there. I mean, that was, when was that? 4 days ago now. And if I had to guesstimate it at that point, if I would have cut it right then and there, I would have said I would have probably looking at about 150 bales off of the entire worts. And just seeing about how much this stuff has come back, and well, heck, even 5 days after we cut it, that's the reason and the incentive to let it go as long as I can. It's risky because we might not get decent weather the second half of September to get it made, and then you start talking about, I'm gonna have to try to make it in October. And the problem is, if I'm trying to make anything down there in October, you might as well, especially now that we have that wrapper, it turns into, well, you might as well automatically expect that it'll have to be wrapped, and I'll just have to feed it to the cows. And then you run into the issue of, I'm gonna need more cows. It's just a revolving circle, you know. You get more feed, you need more cows. You get more cows, well, then you got to get more feed around, or I don't know. That's the problem Ryan and I are dealing with trying to grow our herds, because the problem is that, say, if you're, well, the calf that I just had this morning, and it looks like I got another one that's going to be here anytime. So that calf is born. It's going to be next year at the earliest before I could sell them as a feeder. Okay, well then the problem is, if I kept heifers back, if it was a heifer calf, or well, I'm hoping that any more I have are heifer calves. And then what happens is then you take a heifer calf, you're looking at over a year just getting her raised up to where she could be bred. So then, assuming that you can get her bred, I mean, it's over a year, I'm not saying, these are all approximates. But if you figure a year just get a heifer raised up where she can get bred, then you got to figure another year before she's going to produce a calf. Then you got to figure however long you keep them, if you're just doing raising them up for feeders, or if you're fatting them out. But it takes time to build up a herd out of your own cattle, because if I get a bunch of red heifers, I better get a bunch of red heifers next spring. If not, Rocky's in some big trouble. He's been in with all those red cows up at my place more than long enough to have some results. I mean, he's jumping the cattle down here, so I know there's no reason okay. Let's say I have a bunch of red heifers next year. It's going to be 2 years before those red heifers, those calves next year, start producing calves. So if you want to start doing something with cattle, you need to do it now. You need to do it yesterday. And that's the problem. I mean, I've thought about buying a bunch of heifers, but Travis's finances are getting pulled awfully thin here lately, and I mean, the crops could swing. I could make $50,000 more than what I'm projecting. I can make $30,000 to $50,000 less than what I'm projecting. I mean, prices are locked in, but yield can fluctuate. I can check the crops until my fingers are bloody, which I don't like to do, because yield estimates don't mean nothing. Because I can check it at 200 bushels to the acre, and it could come in at 180, it could come in at 150, it could come in at 300. I've experienced all of that. It's not that enjoyable. So if I ended up yielding another 20 bushels over my APH, which we could have a record year, because that's what they're calling for this area, I mean, I could make another few $1,000s pretty easy. But you don't dare count on that until you have the check in your bank account, and you smack yourself in the face a few times to make sure it actually happened. So I'm not gonna bail everything here, because no, I got a couple waterways to make. I can do that yet, because the waterways that have been done, we aren't bailing, or we're not raking them again. There's no sense in trying to redo the waterways. It seems how it's only 5:30. I can actually do the majority of the waterways in a little over an hour. Get done before 7, and then that way this alfalfa that's right behind you guys, which I'm going to make a little bit of it and then go down there, we'll probably end up coming down raking with the New Holland rake, because tomorrow's supposed to be nicer than today. And then Ryan can come down with the 569, make this, and then there is 6.5 acres, 3 miles that way, the opposite direction of this place, that I'll have to make with this, because even though it's not my bales, it's Dad's. It was very heavy, so it retained a lot of moisture with the lack of sun and heat and everything in the last few days. And I'm probably going to be putting a little bit of preservative on it just to give it a chance. Otherwise, if it's still looking like it's not drying out, we're just going to wrap it, and it'll ultimately be hauled down here and fed to the beef cows. So his mom and dad they've kept back a bunch of heifers this year. Ryan kept back a bunch of heifers this year. I'll be keeping back what heifers I do have this year from the looks of it. Otherwise, it goes back to that argument of, if I don't keep anything back, even though they're going to be black-hided cattle, I mean, if they can at least produce calves at this point, I need to keep them. And, you know, I'm burned out. Because I got about 6 other topics I can talk about, but this video's gotten way too long and way out of hand. So I hope you guys appreciate and enjoy the videos. I mean, I know people want to watch the action stuff, and I really do appreciate that. Anybody that wants me to put the cameras up, I mean, I do have my camera mounts with me. It's just that there are so many other people that do action stuff. I can do voiceovers, and when we're combining and everything, I'll ultimately be putting the camera out and everything, but where do you want me to put the camera on the baler? I mean, the most I could honestly do is spin the camera around. You guys can watch out the front while I'm baling and stuff like that. But yeah, we got another full day of cutting hay. I don't know if I'm going to bother tedding it. Depends on the ground conditions, and if I can get away without having to drag that tedder across the valley, I'm going to try. Just because that's a full day tedding in itself. 2 days raking and 2 days of baling, just even with the 2 balers. Because the problem is this time of year, it's by the time the dew burns off, especially down there where the sun doesn't hit it till about 1 o'clock this time of year, we only have about 5 to 6 hours we can actually rake and bale. So making the final cut down there is probably the most tedious and stressful. No, I take that back. First cut down at the valley is obviously going to be the most stressful, because first cutting, especially when it comes to grass, is going to be your highest yielder. Like this year, it most certainly was. 431 bales off of 120 acres. Yeah. Getting that stuff dried down like I did, tedded, baled, and hauled in and put away, and I filled all the storage I had. And if you guys saw the... Okay, that's enough. Like I said, I'll talk for another 30 minutes easy. Easy, easy, easy. But once again, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel and you like a lot but you don't subscribe, it helps. It really does, because it helps get the videos out there. Like, comment, and subscribe. I mean, you don't have to comment much. If you guys want me to comment ask what you guys should comment, I can start recommending different things, but otherwise, anything as simple as thanks for the video. Like, people that just post that, you're heroes. I mean it. But until next time, I got a little bit of baling I can do yet before it gets too late. So thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Take care, take it easy, keep in touch. Stay tuned for more farming videos, probably tomorrow. Bye.